Be with you is a month-long event organized by FOSS community of Vishajodi College of Engineering and Technology to help explore the world of open source. This event will feature technical talks by experts from various domains of open source, workshops on topics such as Git, GitHub, ethical hacking, computer, and more. As a first step to the world of open source, we are conducting a workshop called Introduction to Open Source, which will be led by Mr. Abraham Raji, who is an expert in this field. Mr. completed his engineering and technology path. He has been a part of various open source clubs from the start, including the College FOSS Club and the Mozilla Club. He has also worked with non-profit organizations such as the Pehya Foundation and has been a mentor to many. He has delivered talks in various conferences, contributed to several open source projects, notably the Swatantra Malayalam Computing (SMC). At SMC, he has closely worked with the release of Malayalam fonts. And he has contributed to customer development to Malayalam. Working as a full stack engineer, Mr. Abraham Raji. Next, I welcome Mrs. Silta Miri Matthew, who has provided complete support for organizing this event. Last but not the least, we would like to welcome each one of you to receive more about open source and in this vibrant and dynamic community. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Let's get started, I guess. Cool. Is my screen visible to you guys? Is my screen visible to you guys?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to talk about basically open source. And open source is an umbrella term for a lot of things. But in general, we sort of talk, when you try to get the whole picture, you need to talk about free and open source software. So that is what this is. So open source and free and open source software. So what's the difference? Where did both come from? Where did free software come from? Where did open source software come from? What's the relevance? And what's the difference between them? So this is in general what we're going to discuss here. So before we start, first things first, is everyone comfortable with English, or should I switch to Malayalam? Okay. Malayalam മനസ്സിലാവോ നിങ്ങൾക്ക്?
Malayalam English mix is I think fine.
എല്ലാം കത്തി എടുക്കണമല്ലോ. ഓക്കെ. എനിക്ക് നിങ്ങൾ കമന്റ്സിൽ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഇടുവാണെങ്കിൽ, ചാറ്റിൽ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഇടുവാണെങ്കിൽ എന്താ പറയുക, കാണാൻ പറ്റില്ല. പക്ഷെ I really prefer you guys speak up. Cool. So the ground rules. So honestly, ഞാൻ എല്ലാ ടോക്കിന് മുന്നേ പറയുന്നത് എന്താ പറയാ, നിങ്ങൾ വിചാരിക്കുന്നത് ഞാൻ ഒരുപാട് അറിഞ്ഞിട്ടാണ് ഇങ്ങനെ നിൽക്കുന്നത്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആരാണ്, നമുക്കെല്ലാം കുറച്ച് കാര്യങ്ങളെ പറ്റി അറിയാം. അപ്പം നമ്മൾക്ക് ബേസിക്കലി ദി ബെസ്റ്റ് വി കൻ ഹോപ്പ് ഫോർ ഇസ് ദാറ്റ് എനിക്കറിയാവുന്ന കുറച്ച് കാര്യങ്ങൾ നിങ്ങളോട് ഞാൻ പറയും, നിങ്ങൾക്കറിയാവുന്ന കുറച്ച് കാര്യങ്ങൾ എന്നോടും പറഞ്ഞാൽ എനിക്ക് ഉപകാരമായി, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഉപകാരമായി. കാരണം ഞാൻ എന്തെങ്കിലും പറഞ്ഞാൽ അത് മണ്ടത്തരാവോ അങ്ങനെയൊന്നും വിചാരിച്ച് മിണ്ടാതിരിക്കരുത്. പിന്നെ ഞാൻ പറയുന്നതല്ല അതേപോലെ നിങ്ങൾ വിശ്വസിക്കുകയോ നിങ്ങൾ അതനുസരിച്ച് എഗ്രി ചെയ്യുകയോ ചെയ്യണമെന്നല്ല. ദാറ്റ്സ് നോട്ട് ദ പോയിന്റ് ഓഫ് ഇറ്റ്. The whole point is that regardless of how you feel about it, it's more important that you understand and think about what it is. So ഇതിനെപ്പറ്റി ചിന്തിക്കുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ഇതിന്റെ മെയിൻ സംഭവം. So let's get started. നമ്മളിവിടെ സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയറിനെ പറ്റി പറയുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് എന്തായാലും കുറച്ച് സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ ആദ്യം എഴുതാം, എന്നിട്ട് നമുക്ക് മനസ്സിലാക്കാം എന്തുവാണ് ഓപ്പൺ സോഴ്സ് സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ. ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ടെക്സ്റ്റ് എടുക്കുക. So I'm going to make so let's just write a Go session. Create a project and I'm going to create a file called main.go. വായിക്കാൻ പറ്റണോ?
കംഫർട്ടബിൾ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് എടുക്കാവോ? Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Pretty simple. So let's just when you are writing anything and go, I'm not going to explain what we are doing, and then basically the layer name. So it have a main function here. Main function so basically the simple skeleton of a good project. Now we can make import. So I'm going to import some stuff. Import. So we need to. So this is code. So we need to do some formatting basically. Then we need to net. Simple like what we have web development, you'll figure out that there's usually a route, and then there is a function that handles that route, and there is a bottom layer on the rack on the server that that occupies a port to which we can send requests or communicate with the server, and that's essentially what we're going to do. So we have HTTP, which is the library that we just basically imported, and we have it's just to make my life easier. So we're going to so slash essentially means at the root of the at the root of the file, at the root of the web server, at the root path of whatever we are opening. And what you send, and of course is what we get. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense right now because a lot of you don't know Go, and most of you aren't even familiar with web development. So it's fine. It's fine. Just hang in there with me. But some of you might actually be understanding this, and this is pretty interesting stuff. So we'll just give these two things a name. So R for write and read. Basically, that's what W is for write, and R for read. And then we are going to like basically write to the string. So basically, this is a string. This is a request. Let's reproduce that. And right. I have some of my notes here, so I'm just looking through some of that stuff. So far we've been doing so good. So let's just start with Hello World. Basically, this is the essential Hello World part of it, right? And this should work, right? So this is one. Then HTTP, basically listen and search. This is the part where we tell it to listen to this, and we don't need a handler here. Just need this more area method. That we are looking for. Yeah, okay. So terminal in Go region. And if we turn essentially what it said is that we're going to use and you get hello. So this is actually pretty factor function right now. Make that an actual function. So basically how to do it. Index stuff. And have any issues reading this. This is pretty readable. You can see it. And same thing. But as you can see, we have something called a request here, so we can basically read stuff from the request. So instead of hello world, we are essentially replacing it with something else. So I can say hello. How it is on the server. So it will run day job. So let's just analyze what's happening here. So how do you distribute it? So let's, for example, take something familiar like Firefox or something like some of you might be using Google Chrome, or we might use Microsoft Word for your text. Stuff that you install on your computer. So what you can do a command and you can build this, and if you do ls, you get a binary here. So this is essentially what you end up installing in your system. If you look at the contents of main.go, you can understand exactly what is happening. You can read the code, you can understand it. It's pretty simple. As a user, you can do that. But if you get only the binary, you get some hex like this, which you really can't understand or basically read, or you don't know exactly what's happening here. Even like that is how it is. So what happens is that when you have a binary, you basically don't know what the piece of software is doing. So what essentially happens is that sometimes you think that a piece of software is actually doing something, but on the background it's doing something else. This is where the relevance of free and open source software comes in. So moving on, Just a second. Yep. So yeah, moving on. Does FOSS make sense? So this is where the relevance of FOSS comes. So if the users don't control the program controls the users. And with proprietary software, there is always some entity, the owner of the program, that controls the program through it and exercises power over its users. A non-free program is a yoke and an instrument of untrust. So, like I mentioned, so there are a lot of new terms in this particular code. So we saw that there is source code that we wrote, then there is a binary that we end up building, and the binary is usually what big companies usually give us, but we don't know what's inside the binary. A binary could be doing pretty much anything, and we wouldn't exactly know. So we would think it's just Google, it's just a browser like Google Chrome, or it's just a word editing or document editing software like Microsoft Word. But because we are given a binary, we don't know what's happening. It might be spying on us. It might be collecting our data. It might be actually selling our data or even mining Bitcoin on our machines, but we won't know because we don't know what is happening inside a binary. So a piece of software for which the user does not have access to the source code or does not have any freedom over the software, does not have any ownership over the software, is called a proprietary software. And that is the term right here. So proprietary software is also known as non-free software. It does not mean like free as in free beer, but when I say non-free, like think of the free as free speech. So this is the issue that we are dealing with when it comes to free and open source software. So in light of this, like what usually happens is that like you need to we usually come across the idea of ownership in our day-to-day life. If you own a car, we can actually open up the car, we can actually tear it apart, we can even trash it, we can actually switch parts, whatever we like. We can do anything we like to it. It might end up being like unusable, or it might end up being broken, but still at the end of the day, we have the right to do whatever we want to the car. But with software, we often does not have that freedom. We cannot have the same level of freedom with something like Google Chrome or Microsoft Word. So why do we not ask such questions as in like, hey, I can do this with my car. Why can't I do this with my software in our day-to-day life? So that is the kind of question I want you folks to ask from this point on. To talk about the origins of free and open source software, free software was the first movement that started. Free software was started by, again, Richard Matthew Stallman, the person whose quote I have given. And free software started with a set of definitions. So these are the definitions that help us determine whether a piece of software is free software or not. So free software is the first movement that started in 1970, and for software, and the founders of free software said that if a piece of software has these 4 freedoms, it can be considered a free software. So the first freedom is the freedom to run the program as you wish for any purpose. If a car again, a car, you should be able to do anything, or you should be able to do anything with the car. You should be able to drive the car wherever you want to drive it. You should be able to, even if the car is going to be at home, it doesn't matter. You are the owner. You should be able to do what you want with the car. Similarly, if you own a piece of a program, you should be able to run the program as you wish without anyone telling you, hey, you can't do this or you can't do that. Secondly, we have the freedom to study how the program to compare it to, again, the car. But I'm just taking the example of a car. You can take the example of any piece of object, any object that you own in your day-to-day life. So again, with a car, you have the, and if you are not happy with something in your car, as long as you have the competence to do it, you can change it. So again, as well. The third one is the access to source code is a precondition for this, and the build a car. For me to build one car, say it cost me X amount. For me to build two of them, it cost me 2x. But when it comes to software, if I build a piece of software once, for me to make a copy of it, you can, so again, you can think of it as the analogy of a car. So it is the ability to share, right? So if you own a car, you can actually lend it to your friend. It's fine. You can lend it to your friend and nobody can tell you, hey, you can't do that. But with software, if you share a piece of software with a friend of yours, they need to have a separate license. And even in some cases, the company that owns the piece of software might actually deny that person for whatever reason. So you don't necessarily own a piece of software that is proprietary. Like again, you can take the example of Google Chrome or Microsoft Word. The third and last one is to the freedom to distribute copies of a modified version to others. By doing this, you can give the whole community a chance to benefit from your changes. The access to source code is a precondition for this. The final one is taking it one step further. So say you have a car and you figure out, hey, all the models of this car have a specific issue and you know how to fix it. So if you know how to fix it, you should essentially be able to share your fix with everyone who owns a similar car, say anyone of your friends, so that people can benefit from your knowledge. So again, in the software world, this is good because if you actually find that an open source, a piece of software that's free and open source is actually doing something bad. If you are a software engineer, you could actually fix it. You can remove the harmful code and you can distribute it. But it's a proprietary piece of software. In the first place, you don't even understand. Oh, it's doing something bad. And if you figure out that it's doing something bad accidentally, you can do nothing about it except like stop using the software. So these are the four freedoms that came in the free software definition. And this was to talk about 1970s. 1970s was the age where software industry was not really a thing, and the idea of a software programmer was not really a thing either, believe it or not. So at that time, at the advent of basically software, it was there were no people who specialized in writing software. It was just electrical engineers or people in the academics, like basically math and physics, who did math and physics and electrical engineering first, and because computers helped them do the computation, they also programmed on the side. But they were hackers on the inside. They had the hacker mentality, so they kept on writing programs that just became better over time, and that's how software industry came. And at the advent of software industry, people like Bill Gates, people like basically Steve Jobs, they did not like this. They did not like this because most of their basically business models revolved around writing one software and licensing it to thousands and thousands of people so that they can basically gain money from each other. There's nothing wrong with making money from it. Again, free software does not mean that you have to give it away for free. It just means that you have to respect the freedoms of your user. But the big corporate companies did not really want that. They wanted their programs to be secret. They wanted to do different things. They want to do things that they really were not comfortable sharing with the public. And for years, people kept on thinking, like suspecting, okay, they are actually spying on them. They might be collecting data. And it was only in the early 2010s or part of the 21st century that hey, these companies. So, here's one issue. The second issue, the question that so when a software engineer reads this, they understand exactly what this meant, and they were like, "Hey, we have to give our software away for free," and they freak out and they were like, "Hey, we can't do this because we are running a business, harm or basically exploit your users' freedom for it." But some people felt that the term free software was ambiguous. So they decided, okay, we'll just rebrand the whole thing and we'll do something that rebrand the whole thing and make something different so that it's more corporate friendly. Eric S. Raymond was the person who did that. And oh yeah, I think we have a section for that. So yeah, free software. So before we go to that, I guess free software succeeded largely. Linux was one of the first free software projects. GCC, the GNU C compiler that most of you used to learn C, was a huge success. Apache Web Server was a huge success. Free software, even though it was not commercial, it was not like a business sort of thing. It bought a lot of traction. It had a lot of users, even more users than like actual software that is built by people like Microsoft, who had a marketing budget, who spent thousands of dollars on marketing every year. Even with that, free software, which did not have any of that, which was just like a 4 or 5 people in a lab sitting and writing software, even with that disadvantage, free software succeeded. And these are the reasons. Like people who actually used software back then actually knew and was very aware of how software worked, because like it was the early advent of software. So everyone who used software was actually they knew how to write some C or basic, and that was it. So they were, so users were, users, like those users would rather have software that they were able to fix themselves rather than wait for someone to actually fix it, if at all. Some companies even like would deny that a problem existed or would refuse to fix it. And again, with the fact that you had access to the source code and you would be able to fix it, you will be able to redistribute it. Users had a level of trust in free software. So people just became more and more enamored by it and kept on using it. Now, developers, so if I'm a free software developer, I have a user who is also who's like using it. They can give me suggestions, reading my source code. If they have the competence to do it, they can basically tell me, hey, you can re-implement it this like this, or you can. There's a bug here, that a possible bug here. And it was easier for them to figure that out because they could read the source code. So the software became really like polished really fast compared to corporate software, which took like years to build, because like it was a black box essentially, and a lot of users weren't really attached to the software as they were to the software alternatives. And again, with more people looking to the software, more bugs were and found and resolved much faster. So like if I was a user of the software, if I found a bug and if I again had the competence to fix it, I could just automatically fix it and send a patch, and it would be fixed like within a day. On the other hand, if I was like reporting a software to a big corporate, I'd have to report it. They'd send me through like 4 people. Hey, I'll connect you to my manager, and the manager will connect you to the other person and the other person. And finally, they'll be like, hey, we accept that there's a bug. We'll be working on it. And then it will go to their project, and maybe in 2 or 3 months, it will get fixed. Free software, on the other hand, is much more fast. It's much more fast to develop free software. And so free software in general had better quality back then. And because of that, it's succeeded. So because of all this, free software was attractive to corporates, but because of the name free software and the fear that they might lose control over their users, corporates generally did not adopt it. So it was at that point that this person called Eric S. Raymond came in, and he felt if we rebrand free software in a way that is more corporate friendly, we'd be able to bring in more corporate support, which can bring in more funding. So like up until this point, the developers depended on users paying them money for their software and other donations and such. But if Eric S. Raymond felt that if we bring in corporates as such, we'd have even more acceleration because we'd have even more funds. So that is how open source came into place, the open source movement. Open source movement forked free software movement. So what was originally free software movement, few people felt that it would be better if we renamed it and rebranded it. So they broke off and they created the open source movement. So we right now have free software and open source. And because people want to be nice and they want to play well with everyone, in general, people say free and open source software. So that's what FOSS is. And there is still a lot of tension between both communities. Like, so this is Richard Stallman, this is Eric S. Raymond, and like there's a lot of basically back and forth in the community as in whether you should say free software or whether you should say open source or whether you should say FOSS. And I personally think it's your choice. So, what is the main difference from in open source and free software? So, I mentioned that free software was the original project, original movement. People felt planning was necessary and they created open source. And that actually worked. A lot of corporates open source, a lot of corporates actually a lot of open source software, quote unquote open source software. And that actually became a thing. And even today, you'd find corporates like Microsoft that the culture in both projects uh, became very different over the years. Even though open source came from free software, open source today does not resemble free software that much. Because in an open source, in the open source software world, people generally care more about the pragmatic advantages of developing software in the open. Essentially, you'll have better software. You'll be able to build fix bugs faster. That's what they care about more. They don't really care a lot about the user's freedom, which is why companies like Microsoft really love it. So like if Microsoft actually cared about users' freedom, they'd stop spying on them, but they don't. But they like to build good software, or they aspire to build good software, so they like open source. So that is generally the difference between free software and open source. When you say free software, you're talking about your users' freedom and and writing better software or the better software that is produced. This is a side effect of the fact that you're respecting your users' freedom. And open source, with open source, you don't really care about your users' freedom or rights, but you are more interested in the pragmatic advantages of well developing software on the open. And that is the difference. So which term you use is up to you. So what do you believe in? What is your philosophy? That is what. So I personally prefer to use the term free software because that is where my philosophies lie. But it's totally fine if you want to say open source. So in the fundamentally both pieces of software have to abide by the four freedoms. So both software will have the same properties, but the intentions of the people writing both kind of software are different. So if you call yourself a free software developer, you're saying that hey, I care about my users' freedom, and I'm doing things to respect their freedom. When you say I'm an open source developer, you say like I like to build good software, and this is the best way to do it. So that's why I'm doing this. So that is that. So I'm going to use the word free software, but you can just like if you can just replace it with open source if you like prefer that. So a lot of questions. So we have the fact that source code should be available in the open. So that is true for free software and open source. So a general question that comes is that can a company make money out of free software or open source software? Short answer is yes, and we have real life examples of corporates that do make money like this. So but the long answer to it is that it's a bit more complicated because uh, for a proprietary company, it's very simple because they just need to license. It's the default answer. It's a tried and tested method. But when you're an open source company, you need to figure out your own way of monetization, connecting with your user base and things, which is a bit more difficult, but even more rewarding because the user satisfaction rate for open source software is way more than proprietary software. So as a company, it's in your advantage to write your software as free software or open source software. Secondly, can an individual make a living out of free software? Again, the short answer is yes, and these are the ways you can do it. You can work at the companies that I've shown here, or you can provide support for free software. So Linux kernel is a free software, right? So Linux kernel, the Linux Foundation does not. So if I'm using, if I have a company and I run my servers on Linux, Linux Foundation will not come and fix my issues. You can actually start a company to do that. You can actually start a company to help corporates maintain their servers. So that is essentially what Red Hat does. Red Hat does Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which is a Linux distribution that's maintained by Red Hat, which Red Hat gives to corporates that and provide support for, and that is how they make money. So you can do something similar. You can do something similar for LibreOffice. You can do something similar for Inkscape or Krita, anything that people use essentially. And you can work on or create projects supported by communities or corporates. So Debian is an example for this. The work done by Debian. So Debian as an operating system is used by Canonical to build Ubuntu. It's used by Google. It's used by Microsoft to deploy the software on the servers. So they all actually want, like value the work we do at Debian. So they actually fund our work. They actually pay like donate money to the project so that we can make sure that our infrastructure stays in place and everything is working. So this is how an individual can make a living out of free software. Now, free software in India. Again, you can basically replace free software with open source. I prefer free software, that's why I use it. Again, if you prefer open source, you can just think of it like that. Free software community of India is a good place. So if you're interested in free software, like free software community of India is the place you need to go. This is like a very vibrant community of people who are actually pushing the boundaries to ensure that the privacy of people like us are like preserved. They actually provide services that we can use alternatives to proprietary ones. And then obviously we have Swandra Malayalam computing. So if you see any, so Swandra Malayalam computing. So one thing about so Malayalam fonts, I think Malayalam computing, Malayalam basically Malayalam input methods. All these are things that only Malayalis can work on. So there is nobody else in the world who can work on these things. So Swandra Malayalam computing is a community of developers who work on building these sort of things. So you look at newspapers, you look at the fonts, imposters, all these things are actually developed by folks at Swandra Malayalam company, which is a free and open source software company, sorry, community, and it's done by like a wonderful group of people. Then there's Mozilla Kerala, and then there's LeetCode is a community in India. And if you actually check if you actually look through your city, there's possibly a Linux users group or free software users group in and around your district or state, and you'll be able to find it. But yeah, if you really want to get better at writing software in general, the best option that you folks have is to actually start contributing to a free and open source software, and that's really something that can actually help you in your career. And you can do that by connecting to such communities and helping them out in doing their day-to-day work. So this is about it for me with the presentation. And now I'd really love if you guys ask me some questions. We have about like I guess 18 minutes. So either you guys ask questions or we're going to have a lot of awkward silence. So you guys can decide which. I can do this all day. Yeah.
No, I get a basic idea about how the software all work means. How can I explain? I get a basic idea about the open sources and software difference between. I think so.
Could you go come again? I didn't get that. Sorry.
ഓപ്പൺ സോഴ്സിൽ കേൾക്കുന്നു.
Okay, I didn't get that actually.
കേൾക്കണ്ടോ?
കേക്കാം പറഞ്ഞോളൂ.
ചേട്ടാ അത് ഓപ്പൺ സോഴ്സിൽ കോൺട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യുമ്പോ എങ്ങനെയാണ്? ഗിറ്റ് ഹബ് അങ്ങനത്തതൊക്കെ പഠിച്ചിട്ട് തന്നെ ചെയ്യണോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ വേറെ ഏതെങ്കിലും രീതി ഉണ്ടോ?
അത് ഓരോ പ്രോജക്റ്റ് അനുസരിച്ചിരിക്കും. So okay, I'll switch to English. So the question was, how do you contribute to open source software? Do you have to do it via GitHub or is there anything else? So sorry about that. So really depends on the project. So if it's something like Debian, we host our own Git server. It's like an instance of GitLab called salsa, so salsa.debian.org. And there are a lot of open source communities that exist on GitHub. There are others who exist on GitLab. So it really depends on a specific piece of software. So if you're getting started in FOSS, I'd really recommend you start using free and open source software first. So like you can, that's the best way to do it. So like before I started contributing Debian, I had been using Debian for years, and that's how I got to know the in and out of the operating system. So like if you guys want to contribute to VLC or basically any piece of open source software, better you guys start using it first. Then you'd have a better idea how to contribute. It's better to go to the website of the project. There you get information as in, okay, where is the issues tracked? Where can you get help? Where is the source code hosted? That sort of stuff.
Hello, sir.
Yep. Don't call me sir. Just call me by my name. It's fine.
ഓക്കെ, നമ്മളിപ്പം എല്ലാവരും തന്നെ വിൻഡോസ് ആയിരിക്കും ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത്. വളരെ കുറച്ച് പേരാണല്ലോ ലിനക്സ് മെയിൻ മെഷീനിൽ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നുള്ളൂ. നമുക്കറിയാം ലിനക്സ് ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത് വളരെയധികം അഡ്വാൻറ്റേജസ് ഉണ്ട്. നമുക്ക് എങ്ങനെ ഒരു വിൻഡോസിൽ നിന്ന് ലിനക്സിലേക്ക് ഒരു ട്രാൻസിഷൻ, അതിന്റെ ഒരു സ്റ്റെപ്സ്, ലൈക്ക് നമ്മൾ ഫേസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്ന പ്രോബ്ലംസ്, അതെങ്ങനെ നമുക്ക് സോൾവ് ചെയ്യാം, ലൈക്ക് ഓപ്പൺ സോഴ്സ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആപ്ലിക്കേഷൻസ് വെച്ച് നമുക്ക് എങ്ങനെ പോകാം എന്നുള്ള ഒരു ജസ്റ്റ് ഒരു ഓവർവ്യൂ.
Personally, okay, should I actually speak in Malayalam? Like, I should. I'm assuming I should go in English.
The language.
Excuse me?
Sir, you can use in.
Sure. Like Malayalam കുഴപ്പമില്ല. Like ആരോ പറഞ്ഞു ഇവിടെ like English prefer ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരാളുണ്ടെന്ന്. So that's why I'm speaking in English. So okay. So the question was like, how do you make the switch from Windows to Linux? So I haven't used Windows in like, I guess like 9 years, maybe close to 9 years. So I've been using Linux for my work. I need to use an Apple device, so I do use a Mac. But apart from that, for almost all of my computing, I use a Linux machine. So I would say, so depends on the kind of user you are. If you're someone who programs, who does some casual browsing, consume media, I don't think there's anything stopping you from switching to Linux today, because we have good piece of software that can do all of this. In fact, the exact software that you would be using in Windows might be available in Linux as well. So that is like one thing. I'll get into detail in that like a bit more, but I'm just like covering the basis first. Secondly, if you are someone who does like a lot of gaming, then things get a little bit more tricky. Like I do some gaming, but a lot of gaming that I do is like retro stuff, like the old Need for Speed games or GTA and like the Witcher series and that sort of thing. Like I like retro games, so like that's usually a lot of what I do. I don't. I think I played Last of Us probably. That's like I think that's still a couple of years old at this point. But yeah, so like these games do work with like some of these games actually work really well in Linux. Like the Arkham series from Batman like works really well out of the box. You just need to install Steam and like download the game, and you can just plug and play. That's about it. Some of the other ones require a bit more help, need a bit more work, but I don't think it's that. I don't even think that it's technical. It's just like tweaking some settings. It's not even very technical. Any game that has anti-cheat or will not work in Linux right now. So if you play Valorant, tough luck, you can't switch to Linux yet. But you can actually run VM of Windows inside Linux and play the game. There is some performance overhead that you lose because of that, but you win some, you lose some, right? Then the third crowd is probably the people who use Adobe stuff. There are good alternatives like Krita is a really good piece of software. Blender is very like prominent in the industry right now. These softwares can be a drop-in replacement for like things like Illustrator or Maestro or stuff like that. But again, depends on the specific use case. There are ways to run Adobe software on Linux, but those aren't like usually recommended. So like I wouldn't recommend. So like if you are if you're someone who plays like competitive game, who does competitive gaming and plays games with anti-cheat, or if you're someone who's heavily invested in the Adobe ecosystem, it could be very difficult for you. Everyone else, it's going to be pretty easy. So the first, I think how you get started is that you replace basically any software that you use on Windows that does not have a version for it on Linux. There's probably an alternative. So for like Microsoft Office, you have LibreOffice, which is actually pretty good. Or you have OpenOffice, you can switch to that on Windows. So once you're used to the software that's on Linux on Windows, first you use it inside Windows. So you can install LibreOffice on your Windows machine. You can use OpenOffice on your Windows machine. And once you feel comfortable with this software, you can just install Linux and install basically the same software on Linux, and you'd feel right at home. So, and right now it's not like with the latest releases of like the kernel and stuff, driver issues are basically non-existent. Most new machines will actually work right out of the box. Especially in the next release, upcoming release of Debian, like you guys should have serious gains. Like it should be very easy to get your drivers set up. And right now, installing stuff like I guess Ubuntu, Mint, Elementary OS, all of those, Manjaro, all of those should work out of the box without any issues for almost everyone here. So the barrier to entry is, I think, reducing day by day. So once the anti-cheat thing goes, like someone figures out how to make it work on Linux, all the gamers should also be able to basically enter the arena. But for Adobe, since it's a corporate, it's a proprietary software, we can't do anything about it. So we don't really have, we can't really do anything about it. But everyone else, I think, yeah, there is hope. I hope that was clear.
Yes, sir, that was very clear.
So, next question.
Sir, I have one
Sir.
more doubt.
Danny? Yeah, I think you were saying
Sir,
something.
sir, നമുക്ക് ഇപ്പം കുറെ അധികം ലിനക്സ് ഡിസ്ട്രോസ് ഉണ്ടല്ലോ. അതിൻ്റെ അകത്ത് എങ്ങനെ നമുക്കൊരു പുതിയൊരാള്, അതായത് ഒരാൾക്ക് തിരഞ്ഞെടുക്കുന്ന ലൈക്ക് ഡിസ്ട്രോ ഉള്ളതുകൊണ്ട് ഭയങ്കര കൺഫ്യൂഷൻ ആവുമല്ലോ.
Got it. So beginner friendly distro is what the question is. So Linux Mint is something that I would suggest to almost anyone. Linux Mint is super good. Like I think you'd have very little issues if you use Linux Mint. Ubuntu is also a good choice, but I wouldn't suggest Ubuntu that much because they have some anti-competitive practices that I am not very happy about. But Linux Mint is like super good. Debian is a bit technical, but if you have been using Linux for a while, like even if it's like a few months, you should be right at home with Debian. The next release of Debian is going to be awesome. It's going to be very easy to install. You won't have to struggle with Wi-Fi or anything. So after the next release of Debian, yeah, I would suggest Debian as well for someone who's a beginner. But for someone who's just starting, I would suggest Elementary OS or Linux Mint right out of the box. Manjaro also works, but it's Arch Linux, and most companies don't really support Arch Linux when it comes to packaging and stuff. Fedora is super good. Fedora is really awesome, but it does not have as many packages as apt, obviously, the Debian ecosystem. So I guess if I should put it in order, I would say Linux Mint, I would put Elementary OS, and then I would put maybe not Elementary OS right now. I would say Linux Mint and Fedora is what I'd suggest. I'm not going to confuse you guys with a lot of options. Linux Mint and Fedora. Yeah. You guys don't right now. I can question. chat and I can try and answer if you guys have any noise at home. So, fine. Yes. How is it? So you talk about something that I do my and kind of it's a good place to work. It's a good place where you learn a lot. So yeah, it's good. What is as you can see, different package managers. So Snap and Flatpak are technologies developed by people so that you can basically run one package manager in all of the distributions. So you can install Snap and Flatpak in any distribution, and you can install software using these package managers. So Flatpak is a package manager like that. They all depend on container technology heavily. So yeah. I meant Linux containers. Linux containers. Fine, like I'd be happy to answer. Like, is the question that if we have ways to install software in Linux without using the terminal? Is that the question? Am I getting it right? Okay. Yeah. So like, if you are using like I think almost all major distributions have their own software stores. So if you use any, like it mostly depends on the desktop environment that you're using. So if you're using something like GNOME, you have the GNOME software center. Like you can just get it from there. Similar thing, KD has KD Discover. I think almost all elementary OS and the elementary desktop environment also has. So I think you can just use the app store that comes with your basically distribution. It would work. You don't need to use the terminal. Even if it's like Flatpak or Snap, most modern basically app stores support both. So yeah. I think we're around the time. Yeah. So it was really good talking to you guys. Thanks to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to talk to you guys. Thanks for all the questions. It was great.
Thank you, sir, for the informative session. I now invite Aditya for a vote of thanks.
Good evening, all. I am here today as a grateful student to express my heartfelt thanks to all those who have made this event possible. First, let me thank Mr. Abraham who is an ardent contributor to FOSS and a software developer who spared some of his time to impart his knowledge, and he made it clear to us about the importance of open source software to us as users and the distinction between free and proprietary software. He also gave us an idea about the communities that revolve around this. Next, I'm going to thank the college management for making this possible. And then I'm going to thank the FOSS coordinator, Sunita Miss, and her team of event coordinators who worked hard behind the scenes to bring this event into fruition. Last but not the least, I convey my thanks to all participants who joined and made this event a success. Thank you all. Okay, now before leaving, let me remind you that this month FOSS is organizing multiple events under the banner of May the FOSS be with you. We implore all those who have joined to take part, learn, and enjoy those events. And a second reminder, the links for certificates will be shared through the Meet chat, and YouTube live comments, and the certificate will be available only up to 9:30. Let me repeat, the certificate will only be given to you up to 9:30. So those who want to take the certificates, you can